Collect old excavators, dispose of abandoned tractors, and recycle high-priced humanitarian rescue helicopters. Price based on quality, fair dealing for children and the elderly. How could I become a military contractor just because I'm a stinky excavator operator and come to work in Africa to pay off debts? Watching his engineering company grow in size, Xia Yu fell into a deep silence. P.S. This book is also known as Battlefield Junk, Afika on the Tongue, and I'm in the Afika Bag Project, keywords of the novel. Do not talk about martial arts, I am a war contractor without pop-ups. Do not talk about martial arts, I am a war contractor. Download the complete TXT collection, Do not talk about martial arts, I am a war contractor. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Chaotic Africa. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Chaotic Africa. Parallel world, near the equator of the blue star. Buzz, amidst the roaring sound of diesel engines, a yellow excavator with the Sani logo was flipping its bucket, plowing the loess beneath its feet like an old cow. Pillar, I'll teach you again, like this. In the driver's cabin, Xia Yu taught a little black how to operate an excavator hand in hand, with a mix of Chinese and French language. Push the left handle forward and extend the forearm. Pa, this is too difficult. I still like to go hunting with Domi. A mistake in operation caused all the soil to shake off, Xiao He complained. He caught a small impala yesterday and sold all the lamb chops to my mother. Tonight, he will have French-style lamb chops. Duomi doesn't have the chance to learn from me yet, but when it comes to fried lamb chops, I still miss cumin lamb and lamb offal soup more. Thinking of the delicious food from her hometown, Xia Yu couldn't help but drool. MD, when he gets rich one day, he must hire a Chinese chef. You idiot, you're wrong again. With a grand wish, Xia Yu was once again brought back to view by the sound of stalling. I haven't had lunch yet, and it's still early for dinner. Let's continue working. Approaching noon, the construction site finished work and had a meal. Xia Yu got off the car like a pillar loach and let out water. She turned off the car and took out their lunch boxes from the basket in the corner. Kasong jia ro, as well as shrimp and lettuce, tastes better than a $1 fried chicken burger, but not as good as the domestic supreme Reggiamo. Chop green peppers and braised meat together, and add double the amount, that's double the happiness. The key is that it's still hot. As a Chinese person, he likes to take a bite of hot food, but at noon, he can only have a cold meal. I have been in Africa for almost 3 years. In the first year, I lived in the dormitory and ate a big pot of rice in the cafeteria. In the second year, I came out to do odd jobs and ate instant noodles for almost half a year. Fortunately, his city is located by the sea, which can add some protein to pure carbohydrates. In the third year, which is this year, he became extravagant enough to earn enough money to pay off his debts. Hired Zhu Mama as a resident aunt, and also took advantage of the situation to accept Zhu as his godson. He became a father before his 26-year-old wizard wife could even be married. After graduating from Zhuzhou Elementary School and failing to advance to junior high school, Xia Yu, a small independent boss, also had his first employee, apprentice. He's a bit worried now, when will this guy be able to graduate smoothly? As Xia Yu chewed on the foreigner's small bread without taking a bite, she looked towards the distant coastline and her inexplicably restless emotions became calm. A few days ago, my family called him back and asked him to go on a blind date. Can't we escape the fate of a blind date even if we run to Africa? Are you joking? He just wants to make money now. Women will only affect his speed of earning money, especially during his career growth period. Well, when he first retired from the military, he also had a period of promotion, but just like in a joke. He has learned how to operate an excavator, his skills have become solid, he has met many people, he has received a job, he has bought an excavator, he has started treating guests to meals, he has started working overtime and staying up late, he has become too busy, he has started hiring drivers. He started paying for fuel, he started paying for wages, and his expenses were getting bigger and bigger. He bought his own parts, maintained them, and repaired them himself. Then he went to the construction site to demand payment, reported to the police station, sued in court, his loan was overdue, his excavator was locked, and his excavator was towed away. Until now, he has come to Afika to operate the excavator again. Life is a cycle of reincarnation. Apart from being relatively dangerous, Afika is not too complicated, and with just a few 100 million adventures, Xia Yu has started to move on. So, he won't go back in the next few years. Returning to his hometown in glory is a matter of the future. After lunch, I continued working. In the past 2 days, my job was to dig the foundation for 2 villas. The entire villa area was under closed management, and armed security guards patrolled the perimeter on a regular basis. Most construction sites here are like this, and domestic workers can rest assured of their work, but once they leave, they have to put in a lot of effort. The construction team that cooperates is also domestic. At present, even a black laborer is useless, and they cannot do technical work. There are excavators to act as versatile laborers, and building a single-story villa does not require a crane. Uncle, take a cigarette, let's go back now. As the sky gradually darkened, Xia Yu decisively finished work after completing today's assigned tasks. Supporting the pillar onto the back seat, he pushed the motorcycle and greeted the foreman at the scene, oldly. It's not that I'm talking about Xiaoxia. It seems like there's been a bit of chaos here lately. It's better for you to buy a used car. If it doesn't work out, let's give you a ride. Motorcycles are not safe. Old Li took the cigarette and kindly reminded Xia Yu Road. Afika is like this, whether she is safe or not is intermittent. Your familiar face may disappear one day. It's okay to return home, it's not just troublesome. Thank you, Uncle Li. I'll go take a look later, but we're not made of mud either. We're carrying a guy in our pockets. Xia Yu smiled and patted her waist, revealing a gun handle at the corner of her clothes. Without 3/3 of the ability, who dares to come to Afika to package the project? Comrade Xiaoxia is not a vegetarian. Although he is not a retired Special Forces king, he has also participated in the selection of Special Forces as an armored soldier. At that time, I was a bit unlucky. I ran several kilometers off the map and even exceeded the time limit to reach the finish line. Rules are rules, although regrettable, they can only be accepted. After retiring from the military, taking off military uniforms and returning to society as an ordinary person can continue to shine and shine. Okay, tomorrow is still this morning. Waving goodbye, Xia Yu mobilized her tattered 3-handed Jiaoling 70 and pulled the pillar towards the direction of the town. There are many people riding motorcycles on the road, and most brands are domestically produced. After all, they are cheap and durable, and are deeply loved by black uncles. However, such advantages may sometimes have a counterproductive effect. Xia Yu glanced cautiously at the rearview mirror and saw a malicious Lifan approaching. Is this trying to emulate violent motorcycle? Xia Yu recalled the game he played in elementary school, which focused on racing, but kicking people is the soul. He didn't wear a big gold chain or a small watch, and the most valuable one was the motorcycle under him. The other party wanted to grab the car. Shua, the pistol was pulled out of the concealed holster, with the muzzle pointing straight towards the slanted rear, and Xia Yu, who was driving with one hand, showed no fear. He has seen this kind of thing for a long time, so the first thing he did on his own was to apply for a gun certificate. Big package foremen can hire full-time armed bodyguards, while small package foremen can form alliances with employees. Xia Yu, who works alone, can only protect himself. Seeing the equality damper in Xia Yu's hand, the 2 people on Lifan released the throttle and said, "Please." They only carried knives, weapons were inferior, and the wind was tight. Wu, turning the accelerator all the way, the originally slow, broken car roared out. This is not a performance with a 70 cubic centimeters displacement. Xia Yu underwent a comprehensive modification and upgrade when he received the car, which is actually a performance beast under an inconspicuous appearance. The redesigned suspension is not a problem for off-road driving in mud. Commuting is just one of the requirements, you need more in Africa. Pa, this is too cool for you. I want to learn this. The pillar excitedly said. In Afika's report, Chinese people always play the role of victims of robbery, but if Chinese people don't come, will those thieves stop doing business? No, they also grab it themselves, it's just that this won't make it to the news. Learn the excavator well first. Xia Yu neither agreed nor refused, learning to protect oneself is always a good thing, especially in Africa. In less than half an hour's drive, passing through the central block of the town, Xia Yu stopped at the entrance of a self-built house with a high-walled courtyard. This is the house rented by Xia Yu Chang, which is a place to settle down. Even if he can afford it, there is no need to pay for it. He is not sure how many years he will work in Kongluga, and it will be very troublesome. Entering the yard, what caught the eye were a square-headed flatbed transport truck and a small Kubota excavator. Not to mention motorcycles, Xia Yu's family has 3 gas tigers. Apart from the recently acquired small excavator next to them, they have relied on trailers and 25.5T excavators to make money and repay debts in the past 2 years. But this is a contradiction. How can we buy these household properties under the premise of owing money? You should know that a brand new 25T excavator costs tens of thousands of dollars in this place like Africa, and second-hand ones are not much cheaper depending on the condition of the car. So if it weren't for that adventure, he would still be working as a driver for another boss now. I remember it was a sunny morning, a long-lost day off at the construction site, and he went to the fish market in town early. Cooking skills don't matter, we can make hot pot to eat. Although Xia Yu is not from Guangdong province, Cantonese-style side-grilled seafood is also a specialty, especially since it was a bit hot during those 2 days. He wanted to eat something light. Strolling from the beginning to the end of the market, I picked up the freshest grouper and went back to cut it into slices and hot-pot it to eat. Just as the belly was being opened, a mutation occurred. King Chen Sheng. How could it be? When Xia Yu was pulling on her internal organs, she touched a hard object. It's not a stone, his wet hand lifted a crystal-clear glass bead. Isn't it the stolen money from the triangular trade during the Age of Discovery? How many slaves are exchanged for a pearl? Just as he was speculating, the sunlight outside the window shone through the glass beads into his eyes. Ah, my eyes! In front of Xia Yu, there was a darkness, followed by countless streams of data flashing by. When Xia Yu opened her eyes again, she had nothing left in her hands. Surprisingly, this thing is not a drop of blood to identify the owner. It can be directly bound and loaded by the retina, right? As a senior VIP and a loyal user who has signed for 2,333 days in a row, Xia Yu has seen such a unique adventure for the first time. It's really a long experience. After calming down a bit, he carefully studied the system. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Medieval Vehicle Auxiliary System. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Medieval Vehicle Auxiliary System, Medieval Vehicle Assistance System. After confirming the system name, I didn't expect that the major was still relevant, and Xia Yu's mood was a bit complicated besides being happy. It seems that he is destined to drive a car in his lifetime. When he drives in the army, when he comes out, he still drives with the system. The title of an experienced driver cannot be discarded. At the same time as the car door was welded, Xia Yu's attention shifted to the word medieval. In addition to ancient wheeled vehicles with horses pulling pedals, water vehicles with hands rowing against sails, and flight vehicles using air gliding, mature nuclear fission vehicles powered by internal combustion engines and electricity are all included in the medieval category. It's over, controllable nuclear fusion, plasma propulsion, and subspace transitions are all gone. It wasn't until Xia Yu's sadness was over that he realized it later. In his lifetime, he would never have seen these high-tech achievements. Conquering the vast sea of stars is not something his generation can solve. Just now, it was a waste of emotions. Returning to reality, he wants to see what visible benefits the system can bring him. Vehicle-assisted driving module. Vehicle maintenance supply module. The two branch modules of the auxiliary system can solve the maintenance and operation problems of medieval vehicles. Most roadside repair shops in the production of cars can be repaired, and high-end 4S stores even allow wealthy individuals to return to the factory. I believe it will be the same in the future, as spacecraft will have to return to the shipyard for repairs. Except for enthusiasts with strong hands-on abilities, there are hardly any medieval vehicles that have been discontinued for many years that can be repaired, let alone driven. The same goes for the supply of vehicle consumables. In World War I and World War II, many niche-caliber bullets are now fired one less than one, and reassembly is also limited. Unusual parts cannot be used to restart the production line for you. Own car. Do you have your own 5-axis machining center? Now, the built.in subspace 3D molecular printing center of the system is dedicated to serving you. After scanning and modeling the melted engine, it can be printed 1.1 for you, and everything else is just a piece of cake. So, can the lithography machine print now? Okay, limited vehicles. This is a customized system specifically developed for enthusiasts of medieval vehicles. Although we don't know how to get it from medieval Earth, let's not just focus on getting bugs. Even with normal use of the system, one can still make a fortune. Xia Yu, who had a plan, had a conversation with the boss and turned the employment relationship into a cooperative subcontracting relationship. The productivity tool is an old seine that looks good but no longer has repair value. It was purchased from a local scrap station. The price is for scrap metal. Xia Yu has replaced his diesel engine with a brand new one and refurbished and maintained the entire hydraulic system. The same applies to flatbed transport vehicles, which he can rent daily when not in use. This is on the surface, but privately, Xia Yu has prepared 10 medium-sized excavators at a rate of 1 per month and then wholesaled them to different second-hand engineering equipment vendors, earning a net profit of $300,000. Of course, after paying off the domestic debt, there are only over $100,000 left, and buying a house seems almost impossible. So let's continue working. Xia, I went to buy tofu today. 2 pieces of tofu cost me $5. Is this robbery? Before seeing anyone, Zhu Mama heard his voice. She twisted her bucket waist and came out of the kitchen, complaining to Xia Yu about buying groceries today. A piece of tofu costs $3, $2 and $5, which is still on sale. But for a country with a per capita GDP of less than $1,000, this thing is outrageously expensive. Sophia, after tasting it, you will think it's even more delicious than meat. Last time I tried it at a Chinese restaurant in the city, and now I really miss it a bit. Rare things are precious, and it's already very good to buy them in the town. This is still because several nearby construction sites are simultaneously starting construction, and hundreds of people from the Huaxia construction team have joined. Regular military logistics procurement is guaranteed, but guerrilla forces like Xia Yu are more expensive, and more importantly, confidentiality. Cologne, did you listen well to Xia's words today? After getting off the motorcycle, the pillar was supposed to hide back in the room, but Sophia grabbed his ear. This force makes Xia Yu feel painful. When he was young, his mother didn't want to carry him like this. Mama, hurry up and let go. Your ears are almost falling out, I'm the most obedient. The future elite hunters bow down to reality and power, and the pillar is ready to become an excellent excavator. If it were his North American hometown, perhaps working as a shell loader in the army would be more promising than driving an excavator. By the way, according to Sophia, the pillar is actually a mixed race of black and white. When she was young, she worked as a maid for a local hair country miner. As a former old money, she also hired a chef specifically from China. Perhaps due to her talent in cooking, Sophia, who is eager to learn, sought guidance from the chef. 2 people each taught and 1 learned, but for some reason, they ended up teaching on the bed, and then there was a pillar. Then the chef returned to the country, and Sophia, who had changed bosses several times, pulled her son to grow up alone until she accepted Xia Yu's employment. She had the idea of letting Zhu learn a craft. He can't get into studying, and he's not interested in his family's culinary skills. Whether or not he learns an excavator is up to him. Sophia's greatest wish is for the pillar to obtain the nationality of the Hare country after reaching adulthood. Learning to operate an excavator clearly allows him to support his family in that country. Poor parents, Xia Yu took on this task. At present, the effect is not very good, but the pillar is only 13 years old, and all it has is time. The Kubota 15, 1.5T, in the yard was specifically purchased by Xia Yu for this child. Is this size suitable? I can work for him when I graduate someday. At this moment, Xia Yu is like the capitalists of Ing State during the First Industrial Revolution, exploiting child labor. Even though this country does not have relevant laws, it is morally ugly. Let the cries and howls fly for a while, and Xia Yu, who was silent in her heart, returned upstairs. There is also an anti-theft door above, which can only be opened to enter one's own room. He threw Glock 19 in his pocket onto the table before taking a change of clothes and entering the shower room. In Africa, safety is always the first consideration. Especially for a small boss like Xia Yu who fights alone, even if he is already very careful, he can easily become a fat sheep in the eyes of others. So SCHRO Dinger's question is, who is the fat sheep after all? Backed by the system, Xia Yu thinks it's not. The handgun is portable for self-defense, and the Glock 19.17 is more suitable for Asian hands. His trailer and excavator cab have been modified to allow for easy access to an AK.105, and a storage compartment has also been added to his bulletproof vest. If the machine gun is not welded to the car, its significance is actually very limited. After all, it is not an Aryan Superman, and the recoil is still very injured. As for those who roast that the recoil force is a lie of capitalism, they can't touch the machine gun at all. In addition, he replaced the glass of the excavator and trailer with bulletproof ones, and as long as it is not a 12.7 mm heavy machine, it cannot break the armor. If it does happen, it's better to stay away from the vehicle as it's easy to get caught in a fire due to its large size. Hot water washed away his fatigue, and Xia Yu went downstairs to enjoy dinner, which was his most formal meal of the day. There are no beauties to comfort the soul in this haunted place of Africa, and eating well can have similar effects. Especially for a small boss like him, the cost is not very high. The bread before meals is omitted, and Xia Yu is accustomed to eating it last. Moreover, replacing it with steamed buns filled with bean paste can make him happy +1. The so-called called most luxurious French cuisine only has 13 dishes, and the ingredients are relatively expensive, but the variety is not as good as the rural feast. Recalling the days when Xia Yu used to dominate the children's table, she poked at today's frozen appetizers with chopsticks. It is a lamb jelly with Chinese characteristics, and the satisfaction of the employer is the direction that Sophia strives for, so she directly made it from the Western cuisine in the video provided by Xia Yu. The second soup is a type of shellfish with a very delicious taste. Although he knows that sodium glutamate works just like monosodium glutamate, this fresh ingredient will have more layers when cooked. Delicious food, the more layered the taste, the more advanced it becomes, and the single flavor becomes very bland. When stir-frying vegetables, you also need to add 2 slices of carrots to embellish them. The first dish is half of the rose lobster caught in the sea that day, which is a good choice for protein supplementation and can be considered a daily staple, but the recipe may be different. Bake, grill, fry, stir-fry, or cook soaked rice during night snacks. Braised rice is Xia Yu's favorite way of eating, but it is usually eaten in the morning at home. Of course, we won't use lobster as the ingredient. The lobster here is similar to how the people of Modu used to eat hairy crabs to satisfy their hunger, which is a rare delicacy for Chinese people. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. New Business. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. New Business. After dinner, Xia Yu crawled into the mosquito net on the rooftop and enjoyed the sea breeze. She collapsed on the lounge chair, brushing her phone. Afika is not from China. It's too dangerous to go for a walk and eat after meals, and there are also many mosquitoes outside. It's better to lie down and grow meat. Of course, with the workload of Xia Yu, the longer daytime at night will be consumed, which is probably self-discipline. The internet has brought the world closer. When I was a child, my father came to Africa to work and only called once a few months ago. Nowadays, as long as there is internet, videos can be played every day. Of course, as long as they don't rush to get married, they still love each other as a family. After muttering a few words to her parents, Xia Yu browsed a certain website, a certain who, and a certain point. It's not safe to play on her phone outside during the day, so she browsed before going to bed at night. A certain talk outside is also okay, adding a bit of international perspective, but it didn't take long for a certain what's to prompt for new news. Hey, brother, what about this? Following closely is a photo, with a lower plate similar to an excavator and a nose that can also sway up and down, which is a bit like a UFO in the upper body. Isn't that what it is? Where did this guy come from? This path is too wild, isn't it? Xia Yu sat up with one bone and clicked on the photo to zoom in and take a closer look for over a minute. That's right, although the models are different, this is the iron Gada he drove for almost 2 years before retiring. Typing and typing, Xia Yu asked about the specific situation, and the answer he received relieved him while also generating a strong interest. Because this is a scrapped tank. Don't worry about whether you will be involved in any sensitive events. He has to complain about it. Does Uncle Black's scrapping method mean selling waste products? Yes, the total weight is 38 tons, and at the current unified scrap price, it's only a small $10,000. If there aren't many people sharing the profits, that would be a good thing. After searching for specific models on Xia Yu Island at the purchase price of that year, I can only say that it is not painful to sell my products. How much or do you need to export for hundreds of thousands of dollars? Brother, I won't earn more from you. I'll take it at $220 per ton. If you want it, you can add $20. The old black brothers across the street started quoting. Due to the pleasant cooperation multiple times, this price is not outrageous. Of course, this does not include shipping costs. Xia Yu has to pick it up at their doorstep. So, does he buy it or not? Buy. Both are buying old for new, and an excavator weighing around 10 or 20 tons can only make a few times the profit, but this Iron King is different. If the tonnage is heavy, it will take more labor. As long as it is refurbished to the level of 99 new for female self-use, and various repair parts are provided, selling it for $300,000 to $500,000 is not expensive, right? Otherwise, military equipment is the most profitable business, and Xia Yu has achieved profits several tens of times. Of course, the risk has also increased by more than 10 times, after all, he hesitated about directly transitioning from an underground equipment dealer to an underground arms dealer. Anyway, let's buy it first and then talk about it. $10,000 is not necessary. It's not a big deal to prepare for his own collection. When he was discharged from the military, he couldn't bear to part with it anymore. But the soldiers in the iron-beaten camp and flowing water, where can you get fresh blood if you don't go? After setting a deal for the day after tomorrow, Xia Yu went downstairs and returned to his room. After turning on the air conditioning, he fell into a deep sleep. The next day, when it was still dawn, he got up and had breakfast when Sophia told him that there was another power outage last night. Fortunately, Xia Yu cleaned up many discarded truck batteries, refurbished them, and installed emergency power sources for households. Even the diesel generators that were used for short-term power outages were not usable. But the frequency of power outages has been a bit frequent lately. He frowned and told Zhu Mama that he would be going on a business trip to the capital city of Busa tomorrow. The city where Xia Yu is currently located is Kongluga, the third largest city in the country. This place is located by the seaside and has a port, with huge development potential. However, the population is still concentrated in the inland riverbank of Busa. The distance between the two places is over 600 kilometers, and if there is a highway, it would be a good journey. However, more than half of the journey does not even have cement-paved village roads, so if you don't want to be knocked to death, there are three options. A railway that sells mixed passenger and cargo with tickets, which can be transported by sea from the entrance to the river, or directly by air. Xia Yu doesn't want to take slow trains and passenger ships, and there's no way to air transport this thing. He can only fly over and carry the car back. I called the airline to book tickets, picked up my lunch box and pillars, and put them on the motorcycle. Working for oneself is not exploitation, not to mention that he enjoys driving excavators. Alright, let's start reviewing yesterday's operation now. Unlocking the safety lock on the computer, Xia Yu clapped her hands and started today's teaching. The task of leaving pillars at home for practical operations tomorrow and the day after tomorrow is quite challenging. Papa, why do you think Mama wants me to go to her country? Is that heaven? After being educated by the beloved, Zhu didn't take a break all morning, but during lunch, he started thinking about philosophical issues. Duo Mi also wants to go. There is a man in our village who has served as a soldier for Haigua people for several years, and his family has obtained registered residence. He also wants to go this way. The child always speaks a lot, and Xia Yu's emotions are a bit complicated. That person should be joining the Haigua Foreign Corps. Compared to people from other places, Gua, as a former colony of the Hare country, is indeed more competitive. They don't need to relearn French, as long as they have sufficient military literacy, there is a high probability of being selected. The child named Duomi looks 2 or 3 years older than the pillar, and his father was a veteran who participated in the war back then. If it weren't for breaking one hand due to injury, maybe the whole family would have been of Hairy nationality now. This kind of hope is also pinned on his son, and years of strict training have made Domi a skilled AK player. Every time he goes hunting in the grasslands and forests, it feels like a practical exercise. Apart from not receiving overload equipment and team training, he is even more special forces than special forces. But compared to AK, he seems to be more interested in excavators, so he is also a potential second employee of Xia Yu, at least in the years before he reached adulthood. Hare country is not a paradise, and Bali is not much safer than Konluka, but your father is there, and if you want to go, it will definitely be easier than Dominica. Every word spoken by Xia Yu is true. The most impressive thing about this former European hegemon was that no one could occupy Bali before the surrender of the country, and the current Afika military police identity is not very sensitive. I don't really want to go, I'll still be happy in Kongluga. The pillar only dared to say this in front of Xia Yu, which was heard by his mother. It's still early, maybe you'll change your mind in 2 years, let's go work. Xia Yu clapped her hands and shook off the sandwich shavings from her body. A cold meal is really just filling your stomach. If there were a Sha County hotel outside the construction site, it would be a wonderful thing. A pancake and fruit cart would also be great. It's too difficult, it's easier to install a microwave on his excavator. He'll finish early and leave early, he'll still be on a long journey tomorrow. The next morning, taking the lunch box prepared by Sophia, I took a taxi to Xia Yu at the airport to check in and board the plane. Sitting on the Boeing 737.200, an older aircraft than him. The plane, filled with traces of years of kissing, soared into the sky, trembling with the airflow during the climb, making people afraid that it might fall. Unfortunately, the system has not yet unlocked the flying vehicle, otherwise Xia Yu can provide free maintenance. His system is very similar to today's mobile games, unlocking new features requires either spending money or saving money. We don't have any recharge channels for Krypton Gold, that's not something of this era. There's no way, we can only rely on liver function. We can gain experience by preparing and driving vehicles. This is also the reason why he has always insisted on driving himself. More than an hour later, the plane landed at the airport on the outskirts of Busa. The foot traffic on this side of the capital is significantly higher, and the military is also heavily stationed around Busa. Unlike a naval base with only 2 broken ships in Konglugha. Well, at least stronger than a certain navy. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Scrap Self-Pickup. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Scrap Self-Pickup. There was only one backpack in his luggage, and as soon as Xia Yu left the terminal, he saw someone coming to pick him up. Uncle Tai, I'm sorry to trouble you again. It's still my treat. Let's go to old Chen's place and have a meal. Xia Yu smiled and said to the middle-aged man in front of her. His boss who just came to Gua is Uncle Tai, who has 6 or 7 excavators under his command and is stationed in Busa all year round. He can be considered a relatively large contractor. In addition, Uncle Tai was also his father's former colleague in Africa, and he had a passionate relationship. That's great. I haven't been there for a while, but unfortunately I can't drink. Uncle Tai is both happy and regretful. Like in China, Gua also focuses on drunk driving. Although he doesn't manage it too strictly, his life is his own. Not to mention that the road conditions here are prone to overturning, it's better not to drink alcohol. Next time, I'll stay a few more days and have a good drink. Xia Yu patted her chest and promised to go to the parking lot together next time. Finding Uncle Tai to establish a relationship is one aspect. On the other hand, he came to borrow a car, and the excavator on the construction site in Busa also needs a flatbed transport vehicle. In the past, when collecting cars near Busa, he always came to borrow Uncle Tai's car. Lao Chen is the owner of a Chinese restaurant in Busa, specializing in Sichuan cuisine. Eating spicy food with the air conditioning on is really satisfying. It's almost impossible to have such authentic Sichuan cuisine in Konglugha. Xia Yu also stocked up several bags of kwai from good families and asked Sophia to cook according to the picture. The taste can only be described as a homely flavor. Full of wine and food, Uncle Tai invites guests to wash their feet. Similarly, only Busa can enjoy such service. There is no sea or beach here, so Xia Yu, who loves seafood, is still more accustomed to Konglugha. You're the one who knows how to deal with things and dares to make trouble. Your dad is good at everything, but he's too conservative. I advised him to stay and work with me back then, but he insisted on going back. While enjoying, Uncle Tai talked to Xia Yu about their past experiences. How do you answer this? If you can earn money by staying at home, who would be willing to leave their hometown? If it weren't for owing a lot of debt, Xia Yu would never have come to Africa for the rest of her life, let alone had today's adventure. Uncle Tai, I just took advantage of my youth and can still learn the language. My dad tried it but couldn't before returning. French is still a bit difficult, and the older you get, the harder it becomes to learn. When Lao Xia came out, he was already in his 30s and couldn't compare to Uncle Tai coming over in his early 20s. If you are just a worker, it doesn't matter whether you learn a language or not. If you want to become a boss, it's better to learn a few more sentences. At least speaking with gestures can make people understand. Uncle Tai also acknowledges this and encourages Xia Yu to grow and strengthen. After 2 years, if he can't make any progress, he will have to go back. His son at home doesn't want to come to Africa to eat dirt, so business relations will be left to him. The continuous sound of Xia Yu should be. What Uncle Tai didn't say to him, he needs to repay his kindness, although he is gradually showing signs of classification within the industry. We won't have dinner together anymore, and the lunch Sophia brought was served directly as dinner. Xia Yu, who received the key, drove to the outskirts in the opposite direction of the airport. There is an abandoned mine there, which cannot be mined and is taken down by people as a waste recycling center. This industry is profitable both domestically and internationally, and it is difficult for foreigners to get involved, and locals also need to have some background to do so. It is obvious that Xia Yu knew this black brother with a military background. With the foundation of the previous business, I believe today will not be a one-time deal. Drop, arriving at the destination, the sky had completely darkened, and after pressing the horn twice, the iron door illuminated by the headlights opened on both sides. There are many scrapped cars here, but they are all worthless. Xia Yu has no idea of wasting system hours. If you also want to purchase passenger cars, Kongluga can meet the demand. There is no need to specially come to Busa hundreds of kilometers away, so there is only one protagonist for today. Drive the flatbed transport vehicle to the weighing scale, where a large object covered by a rain cloth has already parked. This waste station mainly deals in metals, and the weighing capacity of the weighing scale is 100 tons. Currently, it shows 37.5 tons. Wow! Lift the rain cloth and reveal the cold and stern figure below. After removing the 7.62 mm coaxial parallel machine gun and the 12.7 mm high flat dual-purpose heavy machine, it felt like the claws had been removed, but the 125 mm smoothbore barrel still moved forward. Even with only one bite of steel teeth left, it can crush the enemy's throat. Tungsten Gaolon T.64B1M. Back then, 50 cars were sold to Gua, but only 35 were delivered before the backyard caught fire. Not enough for myself, let alone completing the remaining orders. To this day, these 35 vehicles have also been reimbursed due to an accident, and they have been handed over to Xia Yu as scrap. Manta brothers, please order some. After clearing the money and goods, it was confirmed that the condition of the car had no repair value. Xia Yu took out a roll of Franklin and handed it to black brother next to him. That's right, everyone help lift things onto the car. Counting without error, black brother happily greeted his subordinates to work, then turned around and shook hands with Xia Yu. Don't look at him like this, when he made his first business deal, Manta was not honest either. Not only did he not receive the goods, but he also wanted to keep the trailer for Xia Yu, so he had to show him why the flowers were so popular. If weakness is a sin, then the strong can take it all. Manta quickly realized her mistake and actively adjusted her attitude towards cooperation. Having good products really left Xia Yu behind. When Iron King Ba got on the train, the body of the flatbed truck dropped a few centimeters. For the load capacity of the 17.5 m flatbed truck, it's a bit overweight, but it's not a big deal, just a matter of time. Slowly exiting the waste station, driving into the darkness without any streetlights, Xia Yu stopped the car about a few kilometers later. Climbing onto the rear panel and caressing Iron King Ba with his right hand, these 6 pairs of wheels disappeared in the next second. At the same time, the tank logo also appeared in Garage 1 of the system. The subspace garage can temporarily store vehicles and is also the favorite space equipment of experienced online literature expert Xia Yu. Unfortunately, the vehicle is limited and only one is open. Being a person should not be too greedy, but after nearly a year of exploration, Xia Yu has summarized some usage tips. For example, vehicles can carry both people and objects. People cannot enter the garage together, but some miscellaneous items are allowed, which is very convenient. As for profiting from it, he doesn't seem to be so short of money yet. The key is to use the system seriously and accumulate experience to upgrade. Returning to the driver's cab and continuing driving, there are finally street lights in the city. Park the car in its original position, Xia Yu returned the keys and stayed overnight at Uncle Tai's house. The next day, he flew back. Taking a look at the progress, after more than 10 hours of work, this T.64B1M is still the same as before, but the previously melted 6TD1 2-stroke engine has been completely revamped. The engine is the heart of the vehicle and the first item to be repaired during the maintenance process. Start the engine for testing, and the 2-stroke turbocharged diesel engine quickly produces 1000 horsepower under the power of 6 cylinders. If it's a sports car, this is the Bugatti level. But this is a tank, a weight of 38 tons cannot make it accelerate beyond 100 kilometers. Drifting or something is still possible. Xia Yu has also tried using excavators, but the visual impact is not as strong as tanks. The propulsion system is fully prepared. As the maintenance of the transmission device, action device, and control device is completed, the entire propulsion system is fully charged and resurrected. Similarly, the reserves of various metals, lipids, and other materials in the subspace storage facility have also plummeted. Matter does not arise out of thin air, it simply transforms from one form to another, and molecular printing requires you to provide molecules first. Of course, the supply standards are not too high. The grade of scrap copper and iron is sufficient, but the ore form is too oppressive for the system. The protective system is ready. As the last blade of reactive armor covered the surface of the turret, the system reported progress again. Xia Yu has checked the information and found that this thing can prevent competition and cannot handle the short number. But it's still enough to see in Africa, and the more common one here is RPG-7, which is also a legendary toy for the poor. As a competent contractor, Xia Yu believes that all living beings are equal under all weapons, because there is only one life, and only a little effort can lead to a long life. When the preparation advanced to the weapon system, the progress instantly slowed down. All auxiliary weapons have been dismantled and reused, and there are no shells left. The diesel used for testing the engine just now is all freshly filled. Can it be slow? Consciousness exited the system and the plane landed on the runway. It's a beautiful thing to see the sea again, but he has to hurry to the construction site and work overtime to catch up with the progress of the day and a half. The rainy season is approaching, and although we can still work by then, travel will always be affected. Just like a book I read at Xia Yu High School. Tiger in the Mud. Over time, he may even be able to write a book called The Excavator in the Mud. However, if he could sell the T.64B1M in the garage. Not to mention the rainy season, it's enough for him to lie flat for a whole year. No, life depends on work. How could he have the idea of working and playing for 3 days a day? There are so many functions waiting for him to unlock in the system. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Storm approaches. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Storm approaches. Xia Yu, who was working hard, rushed to the construction site and resumed working with the bucket to deal with the loss. I didn't bring the pillar today, so I had to make the butter myself. In fact, a certain tool man is not idle at home. After all, my mother is the best supervisor. No need for teaching. Xia Yu's speed instantly increased. He was originally a talented athlete, and with the bonus of assisted driving, he caught up with the schedule before leaving work. You can't walk back. I bumped into the foreman's pickup truck and happened to be going to the town to buy something. There is an Asian supermarket in the center of Kongluga. The small town where Xia Yu's main business scope is located has a Chinese-owned grocery store, but the boss's Mandarin is a bit difficult to understand. The last tofu was also bought from his home. To be honest, the mapo tofu made by Chen is not as delicious as the old one. The materials are not very good, let alone the craftsmanship. It all depends on the cooking bag to support it. No, the plan to hire a Chinese chef must be put on the agenda. In this way, he can eat stir-fried vegetables for 1, 3, 5 days, 2, 4, 6 days, and eat delicious soup and spicy pots. On Sundays, he can also have some light and nourishing food for his stomach. Xia Yu thought so, and the town also appeared in sight. Say goodbye to the foreman and walk towards home. Buzz, the sound of a water-cooled 3-cylinder diesel engine is still rhythmically ringing. It seems that the pillars are not slacking off, but Xia Yu only found out when he entered the car that there was a flat courtyard sitting in the car. Our Mr. Cologne grabbed the steel frame of the excavator with one hand and waved his popsicle with the other, pointing and pointing. Good guy, even the outsourced workers have used it. I didn't expect that the pillars with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and white teeth also have the potential of capitalists. Sir, I'm sorry, I just... Seeing Xia Yu back, Duomi was startled and quickly got off the car to explain. It's okay, it's a good thing to want to learn something. I don't have enough time to teach you the same. Also, Cologne, that's how you treat guests. Hurry up and bring a popsicle. Those who like excavators are definitely not bad people. Xia Yu lightly kicked the buttocks of the pillar, only to see him running towards the kitchen with his butt thumping. Their family's standard of living in the town can be considered wealthy, and not many families have popsicles on hand. When Xia Yu is greedy, she will eat a few, and most of the rest will go into the stomachs of the pillars and the children in the town. It cannot be said to be a bribe, but it can indeed establish good relationships with everyone. Taking the popsicle, Duomi still felt a bit restrained. In his eyes, Xia Yu, who knows how to operate excavators and has 2 excavators, is a very impressive person. Even more powerful than the person from the village who went to the hair country. It's quite impressive, Xia Yu said. This young man has a good eye, and he's here today to deliver meat to his family. During the 2 days of Xia Yu's business trip, Duomi went into the jungle and killed 2 wild chickens. The weapon used was an old AK left by my father when he was in the army. Xia Yu had seen it before and didn't even have a wooden pallet. Use 7.62mm bullets to shoot birds. I'm afraid I can only eat reprocessed chicken meatballs. Maybe if I eat too much, it won't grow. Fortunately, the 2 chickens in the kitchen are very intact, except for some that are confusing. Amazing, Duomi's marksmanship can be described as a clear stream among the black uncles who shoot with faith raised above their heads by AKs. He needs talent to shoot wherever he wants, especially when he doesn't have so many bullets to squander. Compared to this passive talent, Duomi subjectively prefers to use excavators, unlike a certain pillar who is born in blessings and does not know their blessings. If you just want to go to the hair country, it is more difficult to obtain nationality by driving an excavator than joining a foreign army. It is highly likely that you will still join the army in a few years. Sir, I may not be able to help you deliver meat in the coming period. Chewing on the remaining stick and sucking on the last bit of sweetness, Duomi apologized. Oh. Is something wrong? Xia Yu followed closely and asked. I don't know the specifics, but a few soldiers' brothers in the village sent a message back, saying that it's best to stay at home recently, and my dad also told me not to go hunting. Veterans have the most sensitive sense of smell, and active duty soldiers can also obtain more information than the public, so there must be some problem with this. Are we going to war again? Xia Yu had a bad premonition. He has always been in favor of the statement that war is the norm in history, and peace is only a brief moment of tranquility. Afika, with its complex environment, is even more so. But the situation hasn't reached its worst yet. Xia Yu still has time to observe the changes in the situation in the next stage, and it is not too late to leave if it is impossible. Duomi bid farewell and returned home. His village is 7 or 8 miles away from the town. Sophia and he are neighbors of the same village, and the pillars can be considered to have grown up behind Dom's buttocks. One day when the town is really chaotic, Xia Yu can still follow and hide in the countryside, which is also the retreat he had planned in advance. The engineering team has hired armed security personnel with certain safety guarantees, but Xia Yu has too many secrets and will not go except for collective evacuation. After finishing dinner with a heavy heart, Xia Yu counted the household supplies and communicated with some local partners. Brother Xia, it's unlikely, I just had dinner with a clerk from the Ministry of Energy yesterday, and they didn't say anything happened. Yeah, we know a platoon leader from them. All kinds of messages are summarized, and the form seems to be very good. At least that's how it is in Busa, could it be somewhere else? Sleeping deeply with such doubts, the next day's dawn arrived as promised, and life still had to continue. While having breakfast, Xia Yu glanced at the progress of T.64B1M's preparation 72.8%. This speed is not too slow, he hasn't received it for 2 days, and the tonnage is also there. Slowing down is reasonable. Sweep away the fried eggs from the plate, while the pillar next to it is still dozing off. In my teens, I don't have to go to school anymore, which is the most carefree time. It seems like I stayed up late yesterday to play with my phone. Sophia slapped him on the forehead, and his whole body became sharp and clear in an instant. When she woke up and was ready to start work, Xia Yu decided to go and buy a scrapped pickup truck at night as she rode her motorcycle towards the seaside villa area. It can be refurbished in 7 or 8 working hours, and then bulletproof modified, and he has a sports car. Driving an excavator is not impossible, it's just moving at a speed that's about as fast as walking, and you can catch up with it by jogging. Although tornadoes can destroy parking lots, the trouble is not. The best combination is a flatbed truck pulling a pickup truck and belongings, giving up the flatbed truck in emergency situations and using a pickup truck to pull belongings. As for the T.64B1M in the subspace garage, is that the rhythm of killing all directions. The visual effect instantly came out, but Xia Yu still lacks a gunner. He was only driving back then and couldn't shoot. Domestic, forget it, let's not harm our brothers in the country. Xia Yu remembers that guy's wife gave birth to a girl for him, unlike a lonely family like him. When we arrived at the construction site, we greeted the foreman and Xia Yu asked the pillar to help add diesel to the car. He is accustomed to refueling according to the daily scheduled workload, so that he can use almost the same amount of fuel when he goes to work. The villa area has security, but it's better to be cautious in everything. In case the car is stolen and driven away, it can be quite tiring to work hard to find it. What, recognize the plant? Even though I have a system, I still have to admit it. Didn't the system just give me something for free? Buzz, start the engine, confirm that it is running well, and Xia Yu starts today's teaching again. That's right, learn early, start early, and get paid early. Seeing the pillar move from being unfamiliar to being proficient, Xia Yu didn't hesitate to praise it, but someone only heard about the salary. Really? I can also get paid. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Fatal Crisis. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Fatal Crisis. If you don't get paid, you can work for free. I don't mind. Xia Yu teased Ju, but he became anxious in a moment. Pa, I'll take it. Not taking it is foolish. You're not a fool, you'll have to pass my assessment when the time comes. Graduation is independent work, and Xia Yu will also equip an excavator of more than 10 tons, specifically responsible for some small tasks on the construction site. You can't use a butcher's knife to kill chickens, and a 1.5-ton Kubota is just a nail clipper. Adding another one would be just right. However, the gradually tense situation cast a shadow over Xia Yu's plan. Why is it so difficult to subcontract the project to an? He messed with whoever he hired. Zhu didn't understand his godfather's troubles and continued to work with a silly smile, as if he had already imagined how to spend his salary. Everyone has come this way, but after working for a few years, I want to become my own boss again. Human nature is like this, and Xia Yu himself has also experienced a drop together. Now that he finally gets up again, his experience is even more profound. Approaching noon, we stopped for lunch. Today's menu for lunch is cream mushroom soup with French sticks. The longer the stick is left, the harder it will become. However, the people of Hairy Country have not allowed you to gnaw on it. You can eat it in soup. This work meal composed of carbon, water, fat, and protein directly forgets the fatigue of work. Old Lee and his workers, who had just finished steaming the rice, suddenly felt that the food was not fragrant. So, isn't this guy afraid of going bankrupt one day? Xia Yu can only say that this has a certain level of difficulty. And this is just a work meal, he's already very restrained, and the dinner at night is just enough to break the big guard. The night gave me black eyes, but I used it to. Suddenly there was a phone call, and Xia Yu almost choked on food. The pillar quickly helped him carry his back, and he also put down the spoon and pressed the answer button. Xiaoxia, it's amazing. The army on Panika's side has turned around and is going to be in chaos. Uncle Tai's voice came from the receiver, causing Xia Yu's heart to thump and a boot to fall to the ground. Yesterday he asked, there is a soldier in Panaka in the village of Duomi. The plateau area over there is close to Gua, and its specific location is in a triangular relationship with Busa and Kongluga. The most important thing is that there flows black gold. Everything makes sense, although it's a bit late-witted, we're just a foreign contractor and can't get involved in these things. Also, it can be confirmed now. Both Busa and Kongluga are temporarily safe. The rebels won't be able to fly over anyone in a short while. Buzz, what sound? Now that we've all eaten, why are there still people driving? Thinking about how to talk to Uncle Tai, Xia Yu turned her head and looked in the direction of the sound, then froze for a moment. Well, isn't that what it is? A short water pipe, a long body, and a thick rough Soviet-style wind, it looks like a tank, but it's not. BP.1 infantry tank. Why do I see such an old antique here? Dong, just as Xia Yu was doubting life, the 73mm 2A28 low-pressure smoothbore gun roared. Bomb, the A03 villa in the front left, which had been built and occupied for many years, lit up with flames, and the glass was shattered on the ground. Isn't it said that Panika is causing rebellion? Why is Kongluga also in chaos? Xia Yu's attention was drawn back by the explosion, and now he is laughing worse than crying. Hey, Xiaoxia, talk to me. Why is it like thunder on your end? Uncle Tai's voice came from the receiver again. The microphone of the mobile phone is obviously distorted, but now is not the time for kanji. Uncle Tai, I won't talk about it here for now. I'll call you later. Hanging up the phone and looking around, Xia Yu realized that the big guy was still in a daze. The even worse news is that this BMP.1 is driving towards them, with at least one squad of military uniformed black uncles scattered behind it. Squinting my eyes, I can't see more. There should be only so many people coming here. The purpose should be to cause chaos while carrying out looting. Those who can live in this seaside villa area are either wealthy or wealthy, they are simply the best fat sheep. The iconic sound of AK rang out. There was none at all, but a shuttle swept against a wall in their villa. The other party noticed them and fired at them in the opposite direction, but they didn't intend to let them go. Everyone get down. With a loud roar, Xia Yu grabbed the pillar and quickly lay down, while her heart sank. He can't run with both legs, his motorcycle and the pickup truck from the engineering team are not here. As for what you say, as long as you run faster than others, you can survive. This is for beasts like bears, and the person with a gun is the fastest to aim first. Although the opponent's marksmanship is touching, do you really dare to gamble in the face of life and death? Xia Yu doesn't like gambling. He just wants to control his own destiny, and no one else can make decisions for him. Looking up, he saw his good buddy. The Sany 25.5T excavator. A plan is instantly born in my mind, and its feasibility is very high. Got it. Not only to save oneself and the pillar's lives, but also to try to save everyone's lives as much as possible. Xia Yu is not a lone hero, but his experience in service, beyond the adventures of others, and with a bit of confidence, made him grab the collar of the pillar and run towards the excavator. None of the bullets fired from the spot hit, and Xia Yu and Zhu crawled into the driver's cabin on the tracks. Due to the angle, this scene was not seen by the other party. His vision was blocked by Villa C01, and he temporarily gave up on this side even though he couldn't hit. Killing and setting fire is to boost momentum, and making a windfall is their goal today. The infantry squad left 2 people on guard around BMP.1, while the rest scattered into nearby villas, searching for valuable and easy-to-obtain loot. This is not a soldier, is it completely a bandit? Xia Yu roused about starting the engine. After turning the excavator in place, he bent down and opened the storage compartment underneath. Wear a level 3 bulletproof vest that can carry 7.62mm full-power bullets inside, and then flip out the AK.105 short protrusion hidden in the side gun compartment to load it with your hands. This operation left the pillar a bit stunned. Is his godfather the legendary 007? No, his godfather is just an armed contractor who wants to survive and lead more people to survive. In terms of marksmanship, this gun bought back and gradually ran out of about 10 magazines of bullets, which also slightly restored the feeling of Xia Yu back then. Not comparable to talented players like Duomi, but several levels stronger than these rebels. Connect the gun strap to the lock on the bulletproof vest, and Xia Yu takes a deep breath, slowly counting the seconds in her heart. There is only one chance, and the combat goal is to destroy that BMP.1 first, and then deal with the rebel infantry one by one. As for whether using an excavator to dry the infantry tank would be too risky, and to be cautious, whether to use the T.64B1M in the subspace garage, Xia Yu doesn't think so. Not to mention that the weapon system of the tank is not yet fully equipped, how to remove it in broad daylight is also a problem. The series of operations such as starting, aiming, and firing cannot be solved by a single person, and his approach is the most suitable one at the moment. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Stand Up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Stand Up. Buzz. BMP.1 is still moving forward. The security at the entrance has been resolved, and they now need to confirm the safety of the entire villa area. Rich people can afford to hire private security. Firepower, at most it's just a few pistols and a few AKs, which is just scratching the surface for infantry tanks. What about the excavator that weighs almost twice as much as this infantry tank? Buzz, the even louder sound of the diesel engine rang out, and a yellow figure was seen colliding with the BMP.1 at a walking speed of 5.4 km per hour. Bang-ee-la, the BMP.1 with poor visibility had no time to react and was directly hit by the flat ground several tens of centimeters away, causing the tracks to rub against the cement ground and produce a piercing sound. Unfortunately, if it's a mud truck, it shouldn't be a problem if it overturns in one go. Who made the excavator's walking speed too slow? Upon seeing this magical scene, the 2 black brothers outside were also stunned for a few seconds before quickly realizing it. A round of 7.62mm bullets swept in. The distance to the face cannot be traced further, at least half of it falls on the driver's cab glass. I saw countless white bullet marks left on the originally colorless and transparent glass in an instant. Gathering thousands of jowls in the upgraded turtle shell, the only thing that can break through the defense of this excavator on site is the BMP.173mm gun, but the crew inside are still dizzy +1+1, unable to operate a counterattack. Ignoring these 2 troublesome black brothers, Xia Yu drove forward and prepared to take down the BMP.1 with all his might. Buzz, perhaps slowing down, the body of the BMP.1 began to rotate. This is to use the main gun to turn this civilian cross-disciplinary excavator into a ball of fire. Coincidentally, Xia Yu, who also adjusted her posture, had the same idea. Although he cannot deal effective active damage when facing Iron King Ba, who is also resistant to damage, he can use a wave of passive damage to take away the opponent. The excavator body turned again, and the robotic arm extended straight towards the opponent's short and thick barrel. Click, the bucket teeth made of ductile iron hit the front tilting armor of the infantry tank, while the just-turned muzzle hit the central axis of the bucket forearm boom. Is there such a good thing as being knocked on the door? Seeing the excavator within reach of the cannon mirror, the Blackbeard gunner revealed his big white teeth. He didn't care about switching to armor-piercing and killing shells anymore, and the shaped charge bullet in the chamber was fired directly. Dong bang, with a loud bang, the excavator did not explode into a ball of fire, but the barrel of the 73mm smoothbore gun opened up like a horn. BP.1 dealt fatal damage, but the deadly target was himself. Xia Yu in the driver's cab shook his head. He now has some tinnitus, but it's all worth it. Since the development of equipment in the last century, there have been various ways in which BP.1 can be opened, but it is still the first time it has been terminated by a civilian excavator. But now is not the time to be happy. Xia Yu just opened the door and raised his gun with a single shot. The rebel closest to him fell in response, and by the time the other rebel regained consciousness and wanted to counterattack, it was already too late. He only fired one bullet and was hit in the chest. Pillar, stay in the car and don't open the door for anyone to come. After reversing the excavator that could still move a little further, Xia Yu instructed her to close the car door. Because he didn't come from an infantry background, he didn't have much tactical action. He ran as fast as his legs could. When he got to the side of the first rebel to fall down, he untied the two F.1 lemons hanging from his vest. This thing is even older than the BMP.1 next to it, but it doesn't affect its ability to generate heat today. Unplug the bolt and throw a repair gun into the open top hatch of BMP.1. He quickly ran towards Villa B02. Bomb, a real man never looks back at the explosion. Xia Yu is propelled forward by the scorching waves, and the remaining shells in the car are killed. The sound is like hitting a 155, which is enough to lure the snake out of the hole. As expected, the rebel soldiers in the villa didn't bother searching for wealth and came out one by one with guns to check what was happening outside. Pulling the farthest rebel into the red, Xia Yu took his life with 3 bullets. The accessories of the Afika site are much more expensive than the gun itself, and he is not a machine aiming expert who can break through excavators. It is understandable to spend more money to improve the hit rate. This poked the hornet's nest, and bullets clattered towards him. The good news is that this is not the North American division. Rifle bullets pierce through wooden boards and paper, but they are powerless against cast-in-place reinforced concrete. A buttstock smashed the window glass of this villa, and Xia Yu climbed in to change positions. There were still 7 opponents left. After pulling out the magazine and weighing it, it was impossible to determine how many bullets were still worth cutting. Xia Yu, who couldn't remember how many shots he had fired, didn't look at the observation hole and simply inserted a new one. This is just a safety net, because he may not need this gun much in the upcoming battle, so he plans to fire it. It is easy to leak secrets when lowering tanks in broad daylight, but it is still possible to place the HCBT, NSV, 12. 7mm high dual-purpose machine gun mounted on the tank inside the bunker. After confirming the safety of the house, Xia Yu quickly walked to the window on the enemy's side and with a single move, released the heavy machine with a portable bracket. The newly printed machine gun emitted a foul smell of gun oil, with only 50 bullets per chain. He took out all 6 chains that had been replenished. While the rope was loaded, Xia Yu's index finger was placed on the trigger, and the 7 rebels outside the window also divided into 2 groups and gathered together. They clearly did not realize that death was about to come. Dong 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 dong, the dull sound of 12.7mm bullets rang out, and Xia Yu began to gather fire in the group of 4 on the left. The scene was instantly unbearable. It may be a bit inhumane. If you hit someone, you should use a smaller caliber, but coaxial machine guns are more difficult to dismantle than exposed heavy machinery, so you can only make do with it. After a bullet chain was fired, Xia Yu coughed slightly from the smoke of gunpowder. When he replaced the new ammunition chain, the remaining 3 people in sight, except for one who threw a gun and lay down, ran towards the distance without looking back. But can human speed really run past bullets? Dong 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 dong, stop the gun and work, the crisis is temporarily resolved. He is preparing to run away with everyone. After all, no one knows if there will be other armed forces coming. Opening the door and walking out of the villa, Xia Yu ran down the gun to join the crowd. When passing by the excavator, my heart started to ache again. This car can still be driven, and the entire robotic arm is considered useless. I want to fix it for 10 working hours as a foundation, making it even worse for Xia Yu's already financially disadvantaged family. Damn the rebels, what's the point of bullying us foreign civilians? Roast that getting out of the car with the pillar is not the time to recycle. Let's talk about it when we have a chance. The 2 of them returned to the construction site in Zone C, and everyone gathered around the scene stood up to welcome their hero's return. Xia Yu. You're acting like a special forces soldier. When Lao Li spoke, his teeth trembled and his eyes were filled with shock. He knew that Xia Yu had served in the military before, but based on his 20-year history of watching domestic dramas and movies, today's operation is only comparable to Yan Shuangying, and Su Sanduo is almost satisfied. In fact, they didn't see many scenes. Lying on the ground, listening only to the sound of dong dong dong, Xia Yu cleared up the group of people like chopping melons and vegetables. Let's not talk about this for now. Kongluga seems to be in chaos too. I'll send you back to the engineering team first. Xia Yu quickly called everyone on board. Motorcycles are not suitable for riding anymore. He and the pillar were on the back of the old Li pickup truck, so it would be easy to counterattack if someone chased after him. Cute new book for follow-up reading. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Emergency Evacuation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Emergency Evacuation. Mouth area. After only a few minutes of driving, a sour sensation surged from the stomach. Xia Yu opened the trunk door and vomited directly. Just now, there was adrenaline and dopamine supporting her, and she didn't feel anything. Now that she's relaxed, she can't help it anymore. As an ordinary citizen who has never even killed a chicken, only seafood, today's incident had a strong impact on him, but after vomiting, he recovered. There is always a first time doing anything, not to mention that the other person is not a good person. Apart from the normal physiological reaction, he has no psychological burden, even a little excited. Xia Yu was instantly alert and wondered if she was mentally abnormal. Should she go see a psychologist? Never mind, after obtaining the system, he was isolated from the psychologist. If he is hypnotized and says something he shouldn't say, he is afraid that he will cut the doctor's head first. Dog head. JPG. Reverse slicing is acceptable, but this mentality objectively exists. A manifestation of a lack of security, similar to the fear of insufficient firepower. In almost a year, Xia Yu has to grab something while sleeping, otherwise she really can't sleep. Only those with good symptoms can have PTSD for a lifetime. Fortunately, their nerves are relatively thick and it's not easy for them to get this kind of thing. The gunfire, but the sound is far away and should not affect their side. The speed of the 2 cars increased significantly, and in 15 minutes they arrived at the enclosed building where the engineering team was located. The black security guards inside rushed over with guns to open the door. Before the car could be parked, the workers in the yard rushed around. The engineering team is only in name, and the project construction is contracted to different bosses, who then recruit workers from China. Therefore, carpenters, bricklayers, electricians, and steel reinforcement workers speak dialects from all over the world, but their emotions at this moment are the same. Afraid. If it were a year ago, Xia Yu should also be trembling among them. But life opened another window for him, making him no longer afraid when facing such a situation, but angry. The originally routine pace of life has been disrupted, but now the riots have spread. At least half a year, he cannot afford the project, and the previous project payment is also difficult to settle. His private excavator buying old and selling new business will also be indefinitely suspended. Who is not angry about this? But from a different perspective, will the gray-colored arms business be easier to do now? Does his T.64B1M have a chance of losing health? If there is an opportunity, you must seize it. If you return to Xia Yu, you will definitely not return. He heard several leaders of the engineering team discussing contacting the embassy and preparing to run away. Uncle Li, let's go back first. Xia Yu found Lao Li and told him the decision to leave. What are you going back for? It's currently the safest place here. I heard there's already chaos in the city. Half an hour ago, I heard gunshots in the town. Someone should have taken advantage of the chaos to rob. Lao Li kindly advised. This child's mother is still at home, and you know me, that's not a big deal. Xia Yu said there's no need to worry, it's just that someone in the town is buying for 0 yuan. He'll go back to the countryside to pack up his things. Only 1,000 days of being a thief, where is there 1,000 days to guard against thieves? If the town is not safe, then go back to the countryside. Okay, be careful on the way, we'll keep in touch. Seeing that Xia Yu couldn't be persuaded, he could only give a few more words of advice. I almost forgot, you take my key. The project in our villa area is considered abandoned, so let's take this car as your share. Old Li said, stuffing the car key into Xia Yu's hand. He felt that there was a high probability of leaving this time, and for the collective transfer, he also took a bus with his subordinates. It would be better for him to stay with the bus as a favor. That's not the case. No one can predict natural or man-made disasters. The key is kept for you, Uncle Li. We must return it to you when we meet again. Xia Yu did not shirk his promise. He did have to use the car when he went back, but the probability of returning it was somewhat slim. I hope the situation can calm down as soon as possible. The iron door of the building opened again, and the father and son drove this second-hand pickup truck towards the direction of the town. There are people and cars running out of town on the road, and there are not many people like them who go against the road. They should be from the town. To be cautious, Xia Yu did not cross the main street of the town as before and took a detour back home. Sophia, are you at home? Everything looks normal from outside, Xia Yu shouted loudly in the car. I saw the iron door open directly, and Zhu Mama came out with an AKM in her hand. Oh my God, fortunately none of you had an accident. Sophia pressed her son into her arms and spoke quickly to Xia Yu about what had happened to her. Originally, the city was in chaos even earlier, followed closely by the town. At that time, she was shopping and quickly threw a vegetable basket to mix with the fleeing crowd and ran back home. Holding a gun and guarding the door, I was afraid that someone might come to rob me. I called Xia Yu more than 10 times but couldn't get through, until now I see them safely returning. Sophia, the town can't stay for now. Pack up and let's go to the countryside. This is the pre-planned plan, just execute it step by step. Both mother and son had no objections, and the three of them were busy packing and moving things. Driving the pickup truck directly onto the flatbed truck, Xia Yu aimed the rear bucket at the door of the house. He has a lot of wealth this year, with 1 ton of rice, noodles, grains, and oil, dozens of bottled water items, and 2 suitcases filled with clothes and shoes. The grille in Xia Yu's room has also been dismantled, which he bought himself with his own money, which is much higher than the domestic price. If someone stole and dismantled the copper tube, he would cry uncontrollably. The generator, battery pack, and 2 barrels of diesel, 200L/barrel, were all loaded onto the car. This is just the oil used in daily life. There are 2 tons of diesel in the system storage warehouse, all of which are first-grade freshly squeezed diesel purchased by Xia Yu at a low price from the black refinery. After further refining by the system, the engine tastes quite delicious. Gua is not a major oil-producing country, and this turmoil will not cause international prices to fluctuate, but it can take off its own oil prices. Xia Yu regretted hoarding too little. The storage capacity of the material warehouse was not limited to this point. He was only considering the economy, but he didn't expect the plan to change as quickly as possible. Glancing at the system, before seeing the progress of the maintenance, a message popped up. Congratulations to the host for completing the first kill achievement while driving the vehicle. Garage 2 has been opened. Gudu, Xia Yu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. What is all this? In his understanding, both preparing and driving vehicles can gain experience for upgrading, but this first blood is a bit too exciting. Is this the correct way to open the system? Yes, since its inception, vehicles have gradually been divided into military and civilian categories, and the fact that both types of vehicles can be equipped in the system indicates some things. Xia Yu couldn't help but think of a series of vehicle shooting games such as War Thunder, World of Warships, World of Tanks, etc. If he misunderstood, it would not be surprising that the medieval vehicle assistance system was not specifically designed for audiophiles, but rather for games like these that are available for everyone to play in battle mode. From online matchmaking to Earth OL, it is in line with Xia Yu's imagination of future life, with technology and fun. Okay, take back the non-proliferation agreement, and he has also gained a new understanding of the system. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Anka family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Anka family. In addition, the newly unlocked number 2 garage has also solved the urgent need of Xia Yu. After being occupied by T.64B1M's only sub-space garage, he always feels a bit cramped. Now having an extra garage for mobility would be much better, and there's no need to give up on his flatbed trailer at critical moments. This is an old man card that was put into service in the 1980s and retired for civilian use in the early 21st century. It was later transported to Afika as foreign garbage. Rolling in the mud for decades, when Xia Yu first met it, he really couldn't recognize it as a military man. Fortunately, the system has a magical means of turning decay into something new, except for the fact that only 70% of the surface of the vehicle has been repaired. The heart and bones inside have all been rejuvenated. However, dragging Soviet tanks with German troops always gives a feeling of NT. After the things were packed, there was still room for a fight, and Xia Yu asked the pillar to drive up Kubota 15. It's not easy to prepare these belongings, we must be strong and clear. Starting the engine, the three of them drove towards the countryside before dark, but the ground became uneven shortly after driving. In this place, if you want to build cement roads in every village, you may have to wait for the next century. Fortunately, off-road and water crossing are already the corresponding specialties of military trucks. After ups and downs for 7 or 8 miles, I finally arrived at this small village called Bogo. There is no electricity here, let alone running water. The house is made of wood, mud, and thatch, except for the richest man's house in the village, which is covered in blue iron sheet and has rusted at the joints. Perhaps this is the most authentic Afika. The visit to Xia Yu made the whole village come out to watch the excitement, but with Sophia's father coming forward to mediate, nothing went wrong. Let the pillar scatter the candies that were usually prepared, and the children in the village were overjoyed. Domi and the young men came to help, and Sophia followed behind to command. They settled at her uncle's house. Because I just got a wife for my son in the past 2 years, the house is much newer than others. Sophia, why don't your family also build a new house and ask Cologne to help with the excavator? Xia Yu thought for a moment and suggested. Kubota is a bit small, but when used in rural areas, the size is just right, and a large excavator is not suitable. Really, Xia, thank you so much. Sophia gratefully said. Her salary has been saved all along. In addition to saving money for Zhu to go abroad, she also wants to renovate a house for her parents, but she has never had the opportunity. Unexpectedly, today the boss helped her achieve it. Duomi's cooking is also good. Let him come over and help us with 2 meals. Xia Yu takes out the car, produces oil, and provides meals. Even if you want to repair it better, you can easily handle it with a few $100s of additional materials and labor. If the chaos in the city cannot be stopped, Xia Yu must also be prepared for a protracted war, such as building a single-story retro Davy Wild. Busy until almost 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, Sophia cooked a large pot of mixed stew to reward the villagers who came to help. Without a shower, Xia Yu could only simply wipe it off and then hide in the embrace of a mosquito net. In the countryside, there was no internet or signal, and his phone instantly turned into a brick. Fortunately, he was well prepared and had a satellite phone. By the window, Xia Yu found the signal and called her family and Uncle Tai, telling them that she was fine. It's impossible to go back, just saying that I still have business here, and agreed to call again in a few days before hanging up the phone. Close your eyes, and Xia Yu, who couldn't sleep, enters the system again. The tank in garage 1 has been fully prepared, which gives him an impulse to go out for a test drive now. Xia Yu used an excavator to kill a BP.1, but what about driving a T.64 B1M? Gather all the members of the fleet, I'm afraid we can kill indiscriminately in the Afika theater. What functions will the system unlock when he obtains double kill and triple kill? Many things happened today, which also contributed to the transformation of Xia Yu's thinking. Compared to expanding and strengthening his excavator team, the profits obtained from contracting military projects will be higher. Making money is on one hand, and on the other hand, he also wants to see the ultimate form of the system, not just the current repair experience server. So where did his first business come from after changing careers? Xia Yu, who has no way out, cannot sell his tanks, nor can he find a party willing to provide him with the project. This requires an opportunity. The opportunity came quickly. Less than a week after settling in Bogo village, when the construction site behind the village was bustling with work, a camouflage jeep and a pickup truck arrived at the village head. They are not rebels or troublemakers for Xia Yu, but rather old acquaintances of Domi's father. So they invited your father out of the mountain. Xia Yu peeled the local cherry oranges and chatted with Duomi without saying a word. Uncle Anka was my dad's comrade in arms back then, and he also knew that my dad was disabled. He just wanted my dad to find some powerful characters to serve as servants for little Anka. Got it, I'm looking for a servant for my son. This Anka married her sister to her superior back then, and she also became a lieutenant. Later, when he couldn't get promoted, he came out to do business. Over the past decade, he accumulated a large amount of family wealth through his brother. In-law's relationship, and his son was also sent to the army and became a captain all the way. This happened just before everything was arranged properly and I was about to be promoted to major. Resolving the rebels has become a top priority, and everything else has been sidelined. Anka's son's platoon was sent to Kongluga, but the enemy used to be a regular army, and their combat effectiveness was not stronger than anyone else. So, in order to save my life, it is normal for me to spend money requesting off-court support under the premise that my father is so wealthy. It's just that this old black brain can't turn a corner. If you have money, why do you hire bodyguards and servants? Directly package and contract the military objectives that the superiors want to achieve, and still use oneself to fight and kill. Waiting for a direct promotion doesn't feel good. Xia Yu seemed to see the contracting contract waving to her, and she didn't even bother to eat the oranges and rushed to Duomi's house. Doma, you must help me this time, I'm just this one son. Anka, wearing a suit, is playing a romantic card with Domi's father. In fact, Doma does owe Anka. Initially, his palm was smashed by a heavy machine gun, but after being bandaged, he still became infected and purulent. It was old Anka who obtained anti-inflammatory drugs with a gold ring, and only then did he come back with his life. Now, he has come to ask for help, both emotionally and logically. However, Anka didn't know that the strongest member of the generation in Bogo village has already gone to Haigua with his whole family. The remaining people work in agriculture, and their level of decline is not as strong as his son's. Do you want Domi to go? Doma hesitated. Domi is a good hunter, but protecting people is not his strong suit. Uncle Doma, let me talk to Mr. Anka. I can solve his problem. Xia Yu walked in and spoke confidently. So you know Kung Fu, right? Just like in movies. Anka gestured and asked. It can be seen that he is also an old movie fan, but the Chinese people he has encountered do not admit that they know Kung Fu. Admitting it means there's a ghost. It's good to give a performance, but sparring can be troublesome. I don't know Kung Fu. I know things much better than Kung Fu. Have you heard about the Black Horn community? The villa area is called Heijiao, and after a few days of fermentation, Xia Yu's achievements should be spread to a certain extent. What, then? Did you do that? Anka widened her eyes, her face full of disbelief. He was so shocked because he happened to get home, where his son led the team to handle the aftermath. On that day, not to mention having dinner, Anka almost vomited his bile and his face turned white with fear. Thinking of his and his subordinates' combat skills, he quickly approached his father to shake him. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Signing contracts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Signing contracts. Xia Yu never expected such a coincidence. It turned out that he had caused the incident. It can only be said that no coincidence can be written. At the same time, as Lao Anka looked at Xia Yu, he found it increasingly mysterious. According to residents of the Black Point community, 2 villas in Zone C are under construction simultaneously, and a Chinese construction team is working on them. However, the local engineering team headquarters is empty, and the other team has all withdrawn to Busa. Xia Yu did not evacuate with the main troops, but instead disregarded the chaos and settled in the nearby village of Bogo. This confidence and skill are definitely among the experts. Just how he will solve his own problem, old Anka is very curious. The unit that Kanuga responded to the Panarka rebellion this time was an armored infantry battalion, consisting of 3 BMP.1 vehicles, 6 BTR.60 vehicles, and 6 81mm mortars. As a contractor eager for a contract, Xia Yu hasn't been idle these days. Burning US dollars and connecting to satellite networks, I found these publicly available information on the United Nations Project website. Compared to the infantry battalions of military powers, the Afika troops have a considerable number of personnel, but their equipment has been severely reduced. It's like this when you don't have money, just make do with it. Besides the BMP.1 that has already been taken down, I don't know how many of the remaining equipment are lying around, how many are being sold on the black market, and I don't know if they have expanded their recruitment. At a fixed price of $1 million, I'll help you get rid of them all. Xia Yu stopped beating around the bush and gave his own quotation directly. This price range is reasonable and reasonable. For those well-known military contractors in the international market, without discussing how much higher their prices will be, we don't know when the personnel and equipment will be deployed. Xia Yu is the best value for money. It's just that the object of his sentence is, they. The equipment targets are easy to solve, but there are too many people in a battalion. Adding money won't do it, he's not really Yan Shuangying, and the system doesn't add human head experience. The target of the vehicle is always the vehicle. Old Anka frowned, her mind racing with thoughts. Without spending this money, there is a high probability that my son will not be able to defeat the rebels. If he cannot be promoted, all his previous activities will be wasted. With this money, Xia Yu can complete the contract again. It's not impossible for his son to be promoted to major, and it's also possible for a lieutenant colonel. If the contract is only half completed, it can greatly weaken the rebels, and my son will definitely win in the end. As for not being able to complete half of it, he just lost a prepayment, so this business can be done. Have a pleasant cooperation. Holding both hands together, it can only be said that he is truly a businessman, and old Anka is very courageous. Xia Yu has also won his first military contract, and both the US dollar and experience are waving at him. Our little Captain Anka is still listening to hip-hop music in the car, using tremors to ease his nervousness, unaware that the rank of 2 bars and 2 stars is already prepared for him. Probably, this is fatherly love. Carrying a heavy $200,000, Xia Yu felt a little guilty in her heart. He should not have a stereotype of all black people just because of the poor performance of their North American war zone compatriots. This $200,000 is a prepayment, and the remaining $800,000 will be paid after he completes the contract. As for whether the other party will refuse to pay, Xia Yu has not considered this issue. Armed salary negotiation is not a difficult task for him, and how to complete the contract is the most important thing. Mr. Dom, I need Dom's help. Xia Yu found old Doma and directly made a request. Faced with a platoon of rebels, he can try to lead an unparalleled battle. Facing a battalion of rebels, personal heroism is unacceptable. Xia Yu needs equipment, intelligence, and reliable assistance. Duomi has a calm personality and doesn't say much. He wants to recruit this young man. Mr. Xia, you are a capable person. I think following you is more promising than going beyond the law, so I'll leave him to you. Doma was smoking her own cigarette, overturning her previous plan. I don't raise idle people outside of the law. If I want to obtain my nationality, I will sacrifice my life for 5 years. There is too much uncertainty in 5 years, and Gua has become chaotic. He needs to find a new way for his son. In the past 2 days, he has talked to Sophia and Zhu, and in their eyes, Xia Yu will be more 3-dimensional, which has also made him understand that Xia Yu is indeed a good boss and very powerful. That's enough, Domi following him won't be wrong. Duomi himself was also very excited about this, with a blush on his black cheeks and his limping gun on his back. Domi, you'll use this gun from now on. Xia Yu handed the AK.105 he had used to Duomi. He also has a spare short bump in the trailer cab, and he is better at using light and heavy machine guns than rifles. He also fires handguns well. The caliber of the bullets is different. Shoot more magazines to adapt. We'll probably depart the day after tomorrow. Yes, sir. Holding on to his new gun tightly, Domi responded loudly. By the way, don't you like to drive excavators? After this deal is completed, I'll teach you how to drive tanks. The boss Xia Yu has already switched industries, so the reserved employees naturally have to follow suit. He believes that Domi can definitely become an excellent tank pilot. As for the pillars, when he grows up, if Sophia agrees, then he will be a non-Soviet scheduled loader, the cheerleader of Soviet cars, and the black lucky cat of the engineering team. I'm still digging up the pillars for my grandfather's house, but I don't know. My godfather arranged for him like this, and the young man really hasn't thought about what he's going to do in the future. He only remembers Xia Yu giving him his salary. Unfortunately, the company has suspended its civil business and will only provide military contracting services in the future. The forest behind the village rhythmically heard gunshots, while Xia Yu pulled out a satellite phone. Hey John, it's been a long time since we last contacted. I want to get some hard goods from you. John is a French black man and also a small arms dealer who follows the individual route. Small scale does not necessarily mean cheap, as his products are generally more expensive, but business has always been good. In Africa, small bosses like Xia Yu have some personal defense needs. They don't like the scrap copper and iron that were eliminated from previous wars, and the standard weapons in stock are also not popular. Everyone wants to spend some time on them. John, who had a more unconventional approach, rose up to the occasion and was able to provide mainstream light weapons in Europe and America, which immediately caught the customer's appetite. For example, you may be able to buy a certain generation of Glock 17 from other stores, but John has 7 or 8 models of Glock available for sale. Even if you don't have what you want, you can place an order and it will be delivered to you no later than a month. The AK.105 on Xia Yu Island is specially designed for desert painting, and the fish bones on the back are also filled with various accessories. Such thoughtful service definitely brings a premium, but do we feel like people who lack money? No problem, it's just that in the current situation, as you know, there will be a slight adjustment in prices. Just go up if you want. There's no business that can't afford it. He needs more firepower now. We agreed on a delivery time and location with John, and Xia Yu made a few more phone calls. After a round trip, all the connections he had accumulated over the past year were used. I usually don't burn incense, but I just cram for it and can't even hold it if I want to. The next morning, Xia Yu went to the city alone. Lao Li's pickup truck has already been refurbished, and he made some modifications for the sake of battlefield survival. Of course, the bracket on the rear bucket is detachable, which is not good for frightening nearby residents. Pick up the goods in several places, and on the return journey, you can see that the nearby commercial street has declined a lot, and all the small vendors that were once everywhere have disappeared. Only by eliminating the rebels here as soon as possible can we restore the prosperity of the past. Squeak, stopping the pickup truck and looking at the combination of a van and 2 motorcycles blocking the way in front of her, Xia Yu couldn't help but shake her head. He knows that the security here is not good, but how could it be so bad? Wow, picking up the AK.105 from the co-pilot, Xia Yu loaded it backwards and opened the car door. A round of bullets swept down the bandit who didn't even have an AK, accidentally leaking the fuel tank of the van, followed by another F1 lemon thrown over. Bomb, to maintain Kongluga's safety, a heavy blow is necessary, as these bandits have hit Xia Yu's gun. End of this chapter.